Charges have been raised on the campaign trail about socialism. Do either of you consider the concept of a progressive income tax to be socialistic at its core? And wasn't it true that during the Eisenhower administration, the top marginal rate was close to 90%, not 35%?
Yes, it was, and it was far too high. The idea that progressive taxation is socialistic is preposterous. Bob La Follette invented the idea a long time ago, and we should be proud of that fact.
Spreading the wealth
but I would not be
other
surprised
people.
to see Mr. Mielke call it socialist, since he's already called me a traitor because I have the temerity to question
Mr.
a dumb
Obey,
war.
I said anyone who speaks negatively about the troops, aids and abets the enemy, or undermines the effort is guilty of treason.
Negative about the troops.
When you undermine the war, you are undermining the troops. You are giving the enemy.
Show me where I have spoken negatively about the troops. Why did the U.S. Army Association name me their legislator of the year?
Saying you're going to give them a college course when they get out, but tell them they're fighting a useless and stupid war is a problem that I see.
The Army Association gave me that award before I ever got involved in the expansion
I'm not talking about awards. I'm talking about
bill.
soldiers. And I'm talking about soldiers who are on the ground fighting and hearing back home that you're calling it a stupid war. And these soldiers, this is supposed to be positive, they're just running out of people to kill.
Whose committee put the money in that the Bush administration didn't want?
Money
to see
again.
to it that,
money.
Yes.
Money.
For additional
money.
for up-armored Humvees to protect the lives of our troops. You damn right I wanted more
Then why do you
that.
whine when he spends $600 billion to try to help the troops and you want to spend $700 billion for bankers?
I didn't.
Why'd you ship it over
My
there?
amendment gave him every dollar that he asked for, provided he would agree to a timeline, and provided that he would see to it that every unit that went into that war was fully operationally capable.
If I remember your words correctly, you said that I tried, but we don't have the votes. You said, we don't have votes.
That's correct. Have you ever heard of a presidential veto?
Don't take credit for something that you fought against.
Gentlemen, we've got time for one.
Vetoed it.
Gentlemen, we've got time for one more question. I am going to ask it. Critics have charged that some of the ways we've conducted the war on terror have hurt our standing in the world and also dangerously eroded our bedrock principles of liberty in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Concerns include reports of torture, warrantless spying on Americans, arresting American citizens as enemy combatants without charging them with a crime or giving them recourse to habeas corpus, and the open-ended internment of hundreds of people at Guantanamo Bay. Are you concerned by these allegations, and how would you balance America's need for security with our need to protect our constitutional rights? Dave, you have 90 seconds.
I think it is an abomination that our government has become a defender of torture on the world stage. I think it is absolutely an abomination. And Senator McCain was correct to speak out against it, as did Senator Obama. Thank God that on this issue, we have two candidates who recognize their moral responsibilities. If you talk to professionals in the field, they will question the value of torture, and they will also point out that by countenancing torture, we put at risk every American soldier who is ever captured by anybody else. I think the president had, after 9/11, I think the president did a wonderful thing. He pulled the country together. We had a chance at that point to have virtually everybody in the world at our side as we took on al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Instead, he diverted our resources to Iraq, and in the process engaged or countenanced the kind of conduct that lost us moral support all around the world. It is going to take us years to rebuild that support.
Dan Mielke, you have 90 seconds.
The moral support that we have lost around the world goes far beyond those subjects. We don't follow through with our commitments. We talk about trying to pull out of a battle before it's finished and leave those people hanging. We've seen that with Vietnam the same way. You know, the Hmong population had to actually cross the river and get to a safe point before we would even fulfill our obligation. I have a problem with that. We don't fulfill our obligation. We talk about the persecution. We talk about that. Yes, there are bad things that happen in war. Guess what? War is not a friendly, nice, democratic society when it happens. It's, as a lot of people say, war is hell. And I think the problem needs to be solved before when we make decisions when we go to war and what we're going to do. We don't get in the middle of it and then try to figure out how to pull out at that point. We keep our commitments, we keep our honors. If there's problems in regards to torture, we deal with it, and we did. But when we talk like this, what we just heard right now, and we hear that, and our troops hear that over there, that if they do the wrong thing, they're going to get thrown in jail. Or if they're supposed to do this while people are shooting it. I have a problem with that. Maybe Congress needs to put on their hard hats or helmets and go over there and see what it's like, and then they'll think twice before how they try to regulate the military once they've sent the troops.
I'm just going to simply repeat the last line of my question. How would you balance America's need for security with our need to protect our constitutional rights? And that includes here in America, where we have
our constitutional,
where we have the Patriot Act, and either one of you gentlemen can take that.
I am opposed to the Patriot Act. Anytime you put the power to take away our rights and freedoms into the hands of government, it's abused. I have a good friend, a very good friend, that helped fight the amnesty situation, and Mr. Obey voted 47 separate bills to help them get into this nation and to help them stay here. He fought that battle. The amnesty vote was thrown out. They didn't give amnesty. He's now listed as a Colombian drug terrorist under the Patriot Act. He can't buy, he can't sell, he can't do anything, and he never was to Colombia. What he was a decorated police officer who fought for the freedoms of this country, and he's now being labeled as a terrorist through the Patriot Act. When we give those powers to people who are not qualified to have those powers, that's what happens. When my next-door neighbor down the road a ways called and complained about his trains, they told him, you better not do anything or we'll catch you on, Homeland Security laws. Under the consider you basically a, not treason, terrorist. They're telling, police officers are telling people today on that. They're using that power wrongly. I'm opposed to the Patriot Act. It wasn't done wisely. And I don't know what's going to happen if Mr. Obama gets in and has the power over that and misuses it. So I'm not in favor of the Patriot Act. I believe we never, ever, ever, ever sacrifice our rights and freedoms for anything. That's paramount in this nation. I won't sacrifice it in the healthcare system. I won't sacrifice it with my property. I won't with my jobs. And I don't want to sacrifice it with my military. I don't want to sacrifice the right to fight for what we believe in. That's what the military is for. It's to defend this nation.
We've only got about another minute and a half here.
I would say that what America needs to do is do what it has usually done in its history. If you're going to use your military, use it against the right target. There's nothing wrong with going into Afghanistan after al-Qaeda. They're the people who hit us after 9/11. It was a case of mistaken identity for the president to attack Iraq.
He didn't attack Iraq without your help.
With all due respect, you've had your say. Now I'd like to have mine.
It's an open discussion, Mr. Obey.
That's right, but I allowed you to proceed without interruption. I'd appreciate a 30 seconds courtesy to do the same. With respect to torture, if you noticed, the only people who got nailed and the only people who were penalized in any way were the lower rank grunts who got caught in the vice. Rumsfeld didn't get nailed for countenancing torture. The high mucky mucks in the Defense Department didn't get nailed. Only the lower rank guys got nailed. There's something wrong with that. What you ought to do is to have a policy which says that the guy at the top who called the shots is going to get nailed just as hard as people on the bottom.
You've often said you don't have a magic wand in your pocket. I do. It's called the U.S. Constitution, and we abide by that. You need to follow the Constitution. You swore an oath of office to uphold that Constitution. And a lot of the votes that you guys are doing in Congress are not honoring our Constitution.
And that's why I'm a traitor, right?
Well, if you're not honoring our Constitution, you're not supposed to be in office, technically. You swore an oath.
I mean, do you really want to do a second round of Joe McCarthyism in this state by calling your opposition traitors? That's what McCarthy. I was a Republican until McCarthy did that. I left the Republican Party because he called people traitors.
We are out of time, and I'm sorry we're ending on this note, but that does conclude tonight's Wisconsin Public Radio Route 51 broadcast debate of the 7th Congressional candidates.